300 TDI Discovery that I brought back from Australia. And when I was over there, we were on the beach having a great time, and the transmission went kaput. I think it was because I didn't air down enough, and that's my fault. Maybe the gauges were faulty. I don't know, it wasn't my gauge, but anyways, we were sitting at like 20, 25 PSI when we should have been at like 5 or 6. So that's definitely my bad. And when you're on the beach, make sure you air down a lot. Anyways, so what we tried to do is mix and match V8 transmission parts so that the 300 TDI would work. We got a different bell housing on the V8, a different output shaft, but you can swap those because the middle part is basically the same thing except for a different kick down cam cable cam.
Okay, so we've got all the innards out of the 300 TDI gearbox, and this is the bell housing for the V8 and the V8 gearbox here. So we're going to attempt to take this output shaft and put it into the V8 using all the good plates and clutches in this one and getting rid of all these, and then swapping the bell housing. So pretty self-explanatory. Take the bell housing off, a bunch of 17mm bolts. The pump you can take off separately. You can leave it bolted to the bell housing, and then the A clutch plates will come with it. And this is the B clutch basket here. So to get that off, you have basically this circlip right here, this washer, and this O-ring, and those all sit on here. So circlip, pretty easy to get out with like a screwdriver and a pair of clip pliers. The washer, I used an air gun to kind of blow it out because it was tight in there. And then the O-ring, used a pick to grab it and pull it out, and then the whole clutch basket comes out. And then just pop it back on here so you put everything back in order. And then to get the rest of the clutch baskets out, you take this large SUR ring out, and then you undo all of these T30, I believe these are T30 screws, and then all of this basically from here all the way down to here will come out in one piece. Now this will slide separately, so try to keep everything together so you don't have to align anything weird, but let's attempt it. Another tip, so all of these little passageways right here have a rubber washer at the bottom, and they actually sit right here and hold these plates from spinning or moving out. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back here, and each one of them has a spring and then a little circlip holding the spring in. So it goes washer, spring, circlip. And so to get those washers out, the best way I found is you kind of turn a screw into them, and this is like a large wood screw, and then a block of wood here, and then hammer, and then just kind of pry it out, and they'll pop right out. Okay, so we've got the 300 TDI bell housing, the V8 transmission, and the 300 TDI output shaft. Let's bolt her up to the transfer case and get her back in the disco.
But anyways, turns out the torque converter in this is not working. And those are near impossible to find, and they're small and not great for the 300 TDI torque. So what lots of people do is put the V8 in here and the V8 torque converter, and I have purchased a adapter kit from M&D Engineering out of the UK. That's Motor and Diesel Engineering, and I should be able to bolt up a V8 transmission with this adapter kit and the V8 torque converter to the 300 TDI, which should solve lots of problems. It should drive better, it should have better torque, all around better. And then if the transmission breaks down again here, I can just bolt up another V8 transmission, because those are all over the place here in the States and they're dirt cheap. So killing a couple birds with one stone would be great. So let's get her up on stands, take the old transmission out again, and get ready for the new one. All right.
Let's go over real quick on how to get this transmission out of here. All right, I'm not going to do like a huge hour-long video, just going to do some quick basics here. Get onto the car, get her done. It sucks to get under here without a lift, but just ain't nothing to it but to do it, right? First thing you want to do get the muffler out of the way. All right, in order to do that, you got to take the rear sway bar or rear anti-roll bar out of the way. Otherwise, you can't get the muffler out that way. Up front by the turbo, there's 3 15mm bolts. Plop those out, and then here at the union, or the coupler, which is loose, 13mm bolts, and then on the hangers, those are all 13mm. This is 2 pieces because somebody has deleted the muffler. So we got a straight pipe here. Should be a little easier for me. But it comes out in 2 pieces that way. Then next, you want to remove the drive shafts. It's nice and easy having everything up on jack stands. And by the way, just spend the extra coin and get the big beefy 6-ton jack stands, because the other ones are tiny and they work, but they're a little tipsy. So once you got the vehicle jacked up, you can roll your drive shafts. And you want to take the bolts from the top out, because you have a little bit more clearance at the top. Once the bolts get to the bottom, they get a little tighter down here, and the clearance is just off. So it's a 9/16, so get a 9/16 socket or get one of those special tools for Land Rover drive shafts. That's a 9/16 as well, just a little bit more clearance out of those special tools. And then front and rear prop shafts out. In the back here on the Discoveries, it has this like rubber puck here for dampening purposes. These are 19mm bolts and nuts, so 19mm socket and wrench. Pop those out of there. There's no universal joint here on the back on the Discovery. And then after your drive shafts are out, you want to start supporting the transmission and transfer case. So I take the center console apart, take the shifter out. There's a couple screws holding the shifter mechanism in. Undo your cable here from the transmission. There's like a cotter pin and a washer, I believe, that all you have to do is pull those, and then the cable will come out.
Okay, up here in the center console, once you've got the plastic cover pulled off, I pulled the seats out. Makes it a little easier. Your high-low selector's got to come out, so you got to disconnect the linkage, and then you take your shifter out. There's the 4 screws here, and you've already disconnected the cable, and this will come right out. Then you have access to the 4 bolts that are holding this shifter onto the transmission. Once you pull that out of there, then you can get your strap down in there in the hole, and lift from there. That's pretty much dead center balance point. If you
Couple other things to unplug from the transfer case. There's your speedometer cable or plug. There's your neutral safety switch, your diff lock, and then the 4-pin plug coming out of the transmission. So unplug that harness, get it up and out of the way. Take your parking brake off as well from the top. There's just a little clip that you can undo, and then the parking brake cable slides out from the bottom. So once your cables are all unplugged, your drive shafts are out, I like to wrap a strap around kind of the middle right here where the transfer case and transmission meet up. Take a cherry picker from the top.
All right, you can see that yellow strap there right in the middle. It pretty much balances the whole thing perfectly. And then we've got the engine hoist going in here through the center console.
Lower it down, grab onto it, take some weight off of it, and then you can take your center cross member out here. And these are 17mm and 13mm. There's 5 bolts on each side. And then these motor mounts here and here, I like to take this one out of the way. This is a 15mm holding it to the frame, and then 19mm bolts holding the bracket to the transfer case. You can get that bracket out of the way. It gives you a little bit more clearance. And I like to take the whole thing out at once. I don't like messing with taking the transfer case out separately, even though it's all heavier. But the transfer case, to line it up to the transmission, is near impossible. It's such a tight fit, and it's got to be exactly right. It's just easier to do it when they're both on the ground than to try to muscle it in up here in the vehicle. If you have to, you have to, but that's super difficult. The bell housing bolts, those are 15 and 17mm. Some of them have a nut on the back and a bolt. up by the starter, but the rest of them are all just bolts. And the ones on the top are super tricky. They're just difficult to get to. What I like to do is lightly jack up the front of the engine so it tilts the whole thing backwards. And also, while it's tilted backwards, it's kind of easier to slide the transmission off of the engine. And then you can get to the top 3 or 4 bolts that are really tricky to get to. Long extension. Do your best. It's kind of hard to get to them from the top. It's near impossible to get to them from the top. So you have to get to them from the bottom. Slide the transmission back about 2-3 inches and it should come off of the flywheel. And then you can start lowering it down with the cherry picker. And then, I don't know, I'd like to grab some ratchet straps and wrap them around and lower it down because the cherry picker is going to be in the way. But it's up to you what you want to do. You don't want to set it down onto the cherry picker because then you can't slide it out. So lower it down a little bit, strap it up, and then lower it down the rest of the way to the floor, put it on some wheelie carts and slide it out. So in theory, but I've already done it like 3 times, so let's do it again. Okay, I knew I'd forget a couple steps. Your cooler lines, transmission cooler lines, those are 15/16, and it's a pretty snug fit on there. Once you crack it loose, I take the other end. This old school Craftsman wrench has a 1 inch on the other side, so it's a little bit less clearance or more clearance, and it's easier to spin it off. And then you got one up there as well. And this is your the cable I was talking about, just your shifter cable. Just pull this pin here and then slide it out, and then that's how you disconnect the shifter cable. Your dipstick also, that is, I believe, yeah, 1 1/4 or whatever the next size millimeter is below that. It's a little bit loose, but 1 1/4 will get it loose without stripping it. Your torque converter bolts, there's an access plate right here. This is a 10 millimeter. That's a 13 millimeter for some reason. I don't know why they didn't do them both the same. Take this plate out of the way and then spin the motor. I put a, what is this? This is a 1 1/16 on the front crankshaft bolt, and then you can spin the motor to get at your 4 torque converter bolts, and then the torque converter will come out with the transmission. You don't want to try to pull the transmission off and leave the torque converter on. You might mess something up on it. So I like to do that first. If you are having a leaky oil pan, you can take the oil pan off because you got to do it anyways, and then you have a lot better access to this panel here with the oil pan out of the way. But mine, I just did it, so not going to move it. Just going to get a deep socket 13 millimeter in here, crack the torque converter bolts loose, spin the motor 45 degrees, get the next one, another 45 degrees, get the next one, so on and so forth. Okay, one last thing I forgot to mention, super important. Don't forget to remove your kickdown cable. It's attached to the injection pump. If you remove the transmission without doing that, you could break the cable or bend something on the injection pump, both very expensive. FedEx literally just dropped off my parts. Perfect timing. So we got the transmission out. This is the 300 TDI transmission. And here we have the V8 up on the bench. The main differences between the 300 and the V8 are the bell housing, which on the 300 is about 6 3/4, and then the output shaft case, that's about 4 1/2. And on the V8, we're at about 8 1/4 and 2 1/4. So overall length, we're at 26. Just almost dead nuts, 26. And then 300 TDI is 26 1/2, 26 5/8. So just a tiny bit longer. So hopefully the adapter kit will actually add that extra 3/4 of an inch, and it should be perfect. So let's see what this adapter kit is all about. Here we have the adapter kit installed, and before you put that in, it's a great time to do your rear main seal. And here's a look at the torque converters. This is the 300 TDI, and this is the one for the 4-liter V8.
You can see the V8 one is also taller and a bit wider. Well, that was a lot easier than trying to muscle this transfer case onto the transmission. Just prop it up sideways, lower it down with a cherry picker. Boom. Minimal struggle. Okay, good news. The transmission and the torque converter are working. Not so good news is that the V8 transmission does not like being hooked up to the diesel motor, and it doesn't act the way it was designed to. Basically, I had to take all of the slack out of the kickdown cable and put negative slack in the cable, so it's actually drooping, in order for it to shift smoothly at low RPMs. At high RPMs, you basically have to, in third and fourth gear, you have to take your foot off the accelerator pedal like you're shifting a manual transmission, and then it gently shifts into third and fourth gear just fine. Downshifting works perfectly as it should, no problems there. But somebody said online, I guess the governors, you could add weight or take weight away from the governors to make it shift better. But other than that, I can't complain. It works great. And finally, I'm driving this vehicle on US soil since the last time it broke down in Australia back in April. So it's been May, June, July, almost 4 months since I've driven this thing. So super excited to get it back on the road. And let me show you underneath a couple pointers if you're going to be using this M&D adapter kit. Okay, so here we are underneath the vehicle. Here's the rebuilt transmission. Doing great. There's the new bell housing, or the new torque converter there. Doesn't seem to be any oil leaking out of the rear main seal. That was been replaced. And even though I got a new washer on this drain plug, that's still leaking. And then no leaks out of the rear of the oil pan, which is good. So 3 things that don't come with a kit that you have to kind of fabricate. Number 1, the transmission cooler lines. You don't have to fabricate anything, but you do have to kind of stretch them out a little bit, because these were about 2 inches further back with the 300 TDI bell housing. So that you have to kind of mess with. The mounting bracket for the V8 output shaft housing on the transmission, this is different than the 300 TDI, and as you can see, I had to just drill a hole here. This is where the 300 TDI went right here, so I just drilled another hole here so that this would line up. Not a big deal. And then your shifter cable, there was a bracket on the 300 TDI mounting bracket to hold the shifter cable in place. The V8 one does not have it. As you can see right here, I just drilled a hole in the bracket, and now the retainer for the cable right here is in a perfect spot to hold the cable. So those are the 3 things that you kind of have to fabricate to get the transmission and everything back to normal-ish. All right, good luck everybody if you're doing this. It's a big job. Okay, life update here. I think we've got the problem fixed with the hard shifting. Forget what I said about governors and weights and all that stuff. It all comes down to this kickdown cable here. All right, so I was experimenting with it. I even drove with it off, completely off, and the transmission shifted as smooth as butter, just perfectly smooth, but very short shifts, and it didn't downshift when you mashed on the pedal, so that doesn't work. So you can see my blue mark here. This is where the cable originally was in hole number 1, and then there's 2, 3, and 4 more holes. So if you were to have the cable all the way in hole number 4, that would be pulling the cable the maximum distance possible, and it would be like a 1-to-1 ratio with the throttle cable. You don't want a 1-to-1 ratio. You want like a 2-to-1 ratio, where the throttle cable pulls 2 inches and then the kickdown cable only pulls about 1 inch. So what I did here was make this bracket and then extend the holes closer to the pivot point so that the cable doesn't get pulled as much under throttle. So, and as you can see, I've got a lot of slack in here as well, but as it sits, it is shifting perfectly. All right, so It could be different with Defenders, it could be different with Range Rovers, but with this injection pump setup on the 300 TDI, this is pretty much what you want with the V8 transmission. All right, thanks for watching.